15th, 2024 at 7:06 p.m. If everybody could rise and say the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy Clerk Williamson, call roll.
Trustee Brown.
Present.
Trustee Clark. Trustee Lynch.
Present.
Trustee Roll.
Here.
Trustee Taylor.
Here.
Trustee Williams.
Somebody like to make a motion for the regular board meeting minutes of October 1st, 2024? So moved.
Second.
Trustee Williams and Trustee Taylor. Oh, it's roll, okay. Any questions or corrections? Deputy Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark. Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Aye. Would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the special board meeting minutes of October 8th, 2024?
So moved.
Is that you? Trustee Roll, I'm sorry. We have a second.
Second.
Trustee Brown, any questions, corrections? Deputy Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Clark. Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Treasury report, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. The bills payable for October 11th, 2024, the corporate had $646,991.37. Sewer and water had $161,311.45. TIF Industrial Park was at $1,162.50. TIF Main Street, $100. Glenwood Golf Course, $33,035.52. TIF Halsted North, $17,823.85. And TIF Halsted South, $1,500. Total of all funds was $861,924.69. We're going to be transferring within the contiguous TIF to pay off some of the bills between the industrial TIF, $20,000 to the Halsted North TIF.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the bills payable? So moved. Trustee Lynch. Second. Trustee Clark. Is there any questions?
I just have one, and so, Brian, just we're transferring this for deals, specifically for what?
In order to pay the $17,000 that's there, we're just going to transfer $20,000 at this point to cover those accounts payable bills. Otherwise, I don't have that handy. You can see TIF Halsted North currently has 28,460. Oh, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm not holding it.
Well, Brian, you don't have to give me the specifics, I just want to be sure that it's transferring for our TIF eligible expenses.
Oh,
I
yes.
know you're saying that.
Yeah, they're related to the fire station too.
Okay, so these are for the fire station.
Yep.
Is there any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Payroll.
For payroll, for the date of October 4th, 2024, corporate was $135,536.92. Sewer and water, $18,410.58. Paid on call, $11,800. $860.96. Elected positions, $5,477.06. Glen Woody Golf Course, $34,346.62. Vendor checks were $2,762.62. Overtime for police was $17,669.52, of which reimbursable was $2,641.77. Sewer and water overtime was $595.28. Public Works overtime, $320.55. Economic Development stipend was $461.54. Admin stipend, $1,542.31. For a total payroll of $228,985.96.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the payroll? Trustee Taylor. There's a second.
Second.
Trustee Lynch. Any questions?
I just had one. Chief, I'm just curious, this payroll, I noticed, beginning of September it was like 5,000. The last meeting in September it was 10,000. This meeting is 17,000. Is it, we're going up?
Well, this payroll, I can give you a breakdown of this. The main drivers of this is what you saw in our report. We had a couple of critical incidents during this pay period. This pay period covered September 16th through the 29th. We had approximately 280 hours of overtime, and the majority of that began on Saturday, September 21st in the morning. Our officers encountered a drunk, belligerent, combative subject at one of our retail outlets. This person was in a manic state and ended up fighting our officers and also causing damage to our officers and our firefighters. So, because of the nature of that aggravated battery that the police officers were telling, and that type of incident, because there are witnesses and victims in law enforcement, has to be investigated by our detectives. So our detectives were called out on that Saturday, and that type of investigation is pretty lengthy because we have someone in custody. We have only so many hours to charge them before we have to release them. This person, obviously, due to the fact that they were in their state, were transported to the hospital, where we would have had that officer with them at the hospital, because when they're in custody, you have to stay with them throughout the duration, even if you go to the hospital. They're handcuffed to a gurney, they're in the room, our officer is there with them, constant supervision, because if we're not there, that person will certainly leave.
So when the shift change, do the officer that's coming on duty would not relieve that particular officer?
It depends if there's enough staffing, we still have to treat them. And so, when you have only 2 officers working at the point in time, or 3 officers, if one of them is at the hospital, the next shift that comes in will relieve them if there's adequate staffing or not. Fast forward, the officer or detectives worked throughout this case. At approximately 2 a.m. Sunday morning, continuing this, our officers are still there, our officers are regular staff on duty, our detectives there. We have a major traffic crash that occurs on 183rd and Halston, a little north there, where a 7-month-old and his mother were killed in a DUI crash. And so that is a major case. We have a major accident. Reconstruction team come out, we had our 2 detectives come up, because we have such a tragic and horrific crash like that. None of us able to the fullest. It was quickly determined that the offender in this was intoxicated and was committing numerous motor vehicle, Illinois vehicle code violations. And so they investigated that. Again, due to the significant crash and the 2 deaths, we have to do our due diligence and thorough investigation. And the fact that we have a person at the scene, we take them in custody, all right, you're drunk. There's so much more that goes into it. We have to canvass, where were they before, witnesses saw them treatment. There's a lot that goes into it. And all that has to be done within 48 hours. And our detectives and some of our officers, and the firefighters and the firefighters, they work heroically to try to save these lives, but we also want to get justice for them. And so they work diligently to get all these pieces to present to the state's attorney the case before we have to let this person go. And that means, staying here 20 some hours, going home, taking a shower. And so it is a lot of overtime, yes, but it's a lot of good overtime for the benefit of society and to do justice for our victims in this crash. So that consumed about 80 hours of overtime for those two incidents there. The battery to the firefighter, police officer, and the unfortunate aggravated DUI causing the death of two innocent victims. From there, we had 48 hours of benefit time off for our records department. As you know, we were challenged to filling that vacancy. Fortunately, since then, we have been able to hire a full-time clerk and 2 part-timers. So that should be going down in the near future. One of our full-timers was a person who had recently left to go to another agency, but decided they wanted to come back here. So that was a very turnkey transition. Forward with that, towards the end of this, shortly after our investigators concluded the traffic crash investigation, a homicide occurred in Calumet City, and our detectives were activated the Major Crimes Task Force, which by bylaws we have to participate in that. Otherwise, we won't receive the help we needed. When we do get the help we needed, it's a fantastic resource. That's how we were able to. The incident that happened at the liquor store, we were able to resolve that within 48 hours by having these resources and working diligently to get it done. We had 32 hours of benefit time off, which is basically 4 shifts in this 2-week period where officers took vacation time, so that's normal. Patrol coverage, we had 26 hours. A lot of times that's for when we have shortfalls. Just one of our shifts is short-staffed because we are short-staffed. And so we hire back to make sure we have adequate coverage for officer safety and for the community to make sure there's enough officers on the street. 24 hours of this was for the step grant, which is reimbursable. We had 11 hours of stay over, which is normally transporting prisoners from here in Markham or 26 in California, depending on the day of the week or weekend, late arrest, things like that. We have 10 hours of training overtime, which is our range master. We have to keep up with our firearms training throughout the year. And we have a range master who, in order to have all 3 shifts shooting qualified to maintain the training, he has to stay and work outside of his normal hours, so we have to compensate for that. We had a special detail for a special event at Shugla, which was reimbursable by 12 hours. The remainder of the overtime was 6 hours for normal court, 5 hours for our on-call detective, 4 hours for field training officer, which are one of our officers who was in field training recently completed that. And 2 hours for watch commander for officers who are in charge of the shift when there's a sergeant not on duty. So this, the majority of this is high, I understand it, but unfortunately we had those two or three major incidents where we had to stay here to work until the job was done.
No, and make no mistake, you know, I understand. Law enforcement. So I understand, but I also know that, with the county, overtime was, it was strictly adhered to. And I guess I'm just wondering, with it gradually going up month after month, is there something the board needs to take action on? I know that we're short-staffed, but is there anything else the board needs to consider to help? Because like I said, it does show that it's increasingly going up month over month.
There were times recently was a meeting where we had our overtime was $5,000. So overtime will keep varying, there'll be ebbs and plateaus. Had it not been for the drunk driver, there would have been far less overtime. Had it not been for the drunken person, the guy who was spinning and kicking and fighting our firemen and our police officers, had it not been causing a ruckus in the public, there would have been that overtime.
So I guess what you're saying to assume she does, based on the structure of our department, when there are incidents in the village, we can automatically assume that those officers are going to assume overtime, considering the structure of the way our department is set, because it doesn't sound like they're being relieved when situations happen like this, staying on the clock.
It depends on the type of situation. We have a situation, if it's beyond the ordinary, which, we might have a misdemeanor, domestic battery, DUI, suspended arrest. It could be handled within a couple hours, and you don't. When you have these certain criteria, some of these criteria are set by the state attorney's office where they have to be investigated by a detective. Because in reality, if you have an officer trying to investigate one of these incidents, say they are qualified and they're a forensic evidence technician, they know all this stuff, they also have to answer their calls for service. So you don't want to be interviewing a victim of a crime, and say, you know what, hold that thought, there's an alarm down the street, I have to go check that out, and I'll be right back, because it's not fair to the victim, it's not fair to the officers from the continuity. So these things, fortunately, are not common, but they are anomalies, they do occur.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions?
No, I think that was an excellent account, Chief. Thank you very much for that.
Very detailed, thank you. Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams,
Aye.
Trustee Taylor,
Yes.
Trustee Roll,
Yes.
Trustee Lynch,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Meeting's now open to the public, and anybody can just come up, write your name and address down, and you can address the board. Just so everybody knows, we are not going to take a vote on the fiscal 2025 budget this evening. Anybody wishing to address the board?
Tony Clark, 423 on Fuller. My concern tonight is the lack of participation in the committees. I don't know the last time planning and zoning, I don't know when they met last. But I know that economic development and finance is both for sure. Now, is it your plan to end the committees?
No.
Or did you have a plan to add people? Do you need help adding people?
I'm always looking for suggestions, there's no question about it. If we were able to pay a stipend or something like that, people are more likely to volunteer their time if we can't pay a stipend.
Well, I've been in favor of this thing.
How we can do it here.
I was just messing around. my situation also is, the park has had an inordinate amount of Wi-Fi outages. And I'm wondering that, I just want to make sure that will cease, or that everybody over there knows where the Wi-Fi connections are. We've had 5 or 6 outages.
I think it's Comcast, and when they put the wires in, they did not give us very clear guide, where they put them. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, that's correct.
So they put them in, when Comcast first came in, they just put them in wherever.
They didn't even give themselves good maps, even when when our contractor hit the lines, even when the Comcast guys came out to fix them, their own map showed the Comcast lines on the other side of the street on the west side of the park.
Oh,
But should we not have any more out, have they found them?
Yeah, I think they found them all, and they're actually done digging in where the homes were, they're now building up, so there should not, there's always a chance, there should not be any more Comcast out.
Well, Wi-Fi is so important, everybody, these days.
Well,
Can't live without it.
well, you have all these people working from home now.
Yeah.
They're going to do Wi-Fi.
No question about it.
So,
No, we shouldn't have any more.
well, I'm hoping that you'll go to all the homeowners associations and try to find a way to get people to volunteer for the committees.
Okay. Maybe, I go to most of them anyway, but I will go.
But we've had 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 in a row now where you have just a couple of people.
Okay,
All right, thanks.
thanks. Let's look at it, move forward.
I'm good. Okay, President Gardner and board, I emailed a plan for the Strife to Halsted project. And as you know, Strife from Halsted to Roberts Drive is in the what? South Halsted TIP district. Therefore, we can use TIP money for this project. So we don't have to worry about it being in the budget since we happily use TIP money for other projects. And according to the September balance of TIP 26th.
And I did respond to your email.
You said that you received it, yeah. But what I'm looking for tonight is a commitment
Yes, we are.
for the project. So can you give me a timeline? I'll write it down and report back to the committee.
I could say within, depending on the weather,
Oh.
maybe 2 months.
Okay, 60 days. Okay, so that'll be, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
Good evening, everyone. Leon Moore, 318 Blackstone. The mayor took my favorite topic off the budget, off the agenda. I was going to speak about the budget. What I would like to do in terms of the budget, if there is a timeline by which we are looking to try to have a budget, and if we can make that available so that those of us that are following the budget process will have some sense of when that is to come together. Also, I would like to suggest, I don't know how the public is to get its input into, we'll say, Mr. Jensen, so that when we come together to discuss the budget, it's on the agenda for tonight. But since it's not going to be discussed, and when we discussed it last time in an open meeting, I thought we had agreed that it would not be practical to try to go through a 500-line budget in an open meeting. And so we still don't have any direction as to how to get our input into the process so that whether or not you're going to go through a finance committee or going to go directly to the board. But so if we could give some thought to how a citizen can in effect get input without necessarily, since we're not going to have another open public meeting not soon. So if that's the case, so that we can make some progress. So those are my thoughts on that. With regard to some public information, I see where some of the villages received a letter from the comptroller relative to delinquent reports. And I guess the question for us, since I know we haven't completed that audit, did we receive such a letter?
No. You're talking about Oak Park, right?
The audit park and other communities. And I think the penalty is that state share revenues will not be dispersed unless, of course, we're compliant with our annual audit reports. And so, Linwood did not receive such a directive. Perfect.
In Orland,
Well, there was a number of others.
everything was completed 2021.
Okay.
For the bid.
Yeah, perfect. This public. The other item, there was another, and I spoke to the mayor about grants from the county. There was a grant in May, and it was touted by President Petwinkle relative to dispersing, I think it was in the area of about $10 to $13 million to the South Suburban community for infrastructure improvement. And in that May release, Glenbrook was noticeably absent. So I wrote to Commissioner Donna Miller and asked her why, and would she look into that process in terms of why Glenbrook was not included. And I sent that to her office, but I never got a response. And so I encountered her over at, she had a golf outing in the Solar Store again, and she said, resend it, which I did. But now in the August report, there was a disbursement of $3 million to the South Suburban 30 communities for some more infrastructure. And Donna Miller, she was the author of that article that was in the August paper. I don't want to say that my follow-up to her had any impact. $3 million versus the 13 that was dispersed in May, and $3 million among these different communities. Glenbrook was mentioned in the latest August article, but not in the May article. So I thought with our political clout that we could at least inquire, because the county just had a big budget, and President Petwinkle indicated that they were going to take care of some of these infrastructure issues in some of these communities. And so I don't know if we received any kind of notice that we're going to get any kind of funds, but that is something that I have my eyes on. I want to get it to the public papers. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, my two asked were from the county or State Street and Glenwood Lansing Road.
I beg your pardon?
I asked her to repair State Street going out to Glenwood because it's atrocious. And
Yes.
we have to patch it every now and then in Glenwood Lansing Road.
Yeah.
So, because that's in bad shape. The cottage, I'll leave it 394.
Well, all I'm suggesting is that there's apparently money on the table.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure we get our share, and, you know, and say,
And it's their roads.
it's their road, right, exactly. Okay, thank you very much.
They have been out twice now, in the last 30 days, to take a look at
At
it. And the
the,
engineers were out.
at the state, Street,
At State Street, from State Street going south, and from Bloom, Lansing Road going to the overpass.
Thank you. Anybody else willing to address the board? Wanting to address the board?
I guess I'm still, I hope that we can get some kind of response as to how do we get our input into the budget process. And so if someone can come up with some kind of.
Yeah, you can call me, you can call Brian or Ryan, you can email us, whatever, send smoke signals, whatever you want to do.
I'll send something. Okay, the thing is.
Call me with any input.
No problem. We're still operating with the original versions. And so unless there are some adjustments, because if I go through and take a look, I don't want to be chasing my tail, but it's always been changed. There are some issues that I have some concerns with.
We have not changed anything from the original budget.
Exactly. I'll go through one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, communications from the mayor's office. First of all, I want to announce to everybody the closure of 187th Street from the bridge to Pleasant. So it's going to be for a little bit of time. We're going to have, it's going to be from next Monday, 10/21/24 to 11/21/24. It has to do with the road raising and for the flood mitigation project that is underway. You're going to have to go down Halsted to Holbrook and go around the closures. But they have promised this, it would take 30 days. Also, the bridge project that the village of Glenwood doesn't have anything to do with. IDOT is, as if you've noticed, they're actually doing work on it now. The bed of the bridge is in, and so hopefully they tell us that they're going to have this done before winter, and they'll pave part of it, but not all of it. So they're going to do the most of the work before winter, and they're going to pave some of it, but they might have to button up some things in the spring. So, but thank goodness that project that they've dragged on for 4 years now with all sorts of excuses is coming to a culmination. I also want to thank the fire department and Chief Wells for coordinating. We coordinated it, but it was sent through Mavis. We didn't have any personnel or equipment sent there, but we coordinated it for hurricane relief. So we did, and Chief, did you want to go over what Mavis did?
It was basically a FEMA tasking that came from the federal government. Mavis, Illinois was tasked to provide 5 fire engines and 5 fire engines, 2 chief's cars, 2 utility vehicles, trailers, light towers, western shelters and things. So 22 of the members of the departments that make up Mavis Division 24 went down to Florida for a 5-day deployment, and they're all back and safe, and they worked a little bit, and it was quite an experience to send them off for a 24-hour ride because the fire engine won't go over 62 miles an hour. So quite an experience for those young firefighters that went, and the chiefs that organized that actual response and went down there for me.
That's great. And it's reimbursable, right? From the
Yeah, the federal government reimburses for the apparatus they use on an hourly basis and what they call backfill overtime. So they're either paying the salary of the people who were sent, or they're paying for the people to time and a half to sit and take their positions.
Item 1 and 2, if we could table those to the end of the meeting. Somebody like to make a motion? So moved. Trustee Williams, do we have a second? Trustee Clark. Deputy Clerk Williams, and call roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll. Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Attorney's report, John Donahue.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Number one relates to Chief Petticourt's desire to make Glenwood more attractive for lateral transfers. Our ordinances previously required that if you're a lateral transfer, you need to have 2 years of prior full-time experience. He's asked that we amend that ordinance to take that 2-year requirement out, to make us more attractive and to give us maybe a few more options when it comes to filling our vacant positions with lateral transfers.
So I would like to make a motion for the approval of an ordinance amending section 58-33 D1 of the Glenwood Village Code to remove the minimum years of service for lateral transfers.
So,
Trustee Taylor and Trustee Clark. Any questions? If Clerk Williams, you call roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Clark. Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Item 2.
Yes, item 2 is the adoption of an update of the Cook County's multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. The county largely does this. It needs to be updated every 5 years, and it's now due for an update. And the important reason to do this is that if you don't do it, you're not eligible for certain federal emergency management agency grants. So that's why we need to do this.
Somebody would like to make a motion for the approval of the resolution adoption of the update of the Cook County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Trustee Lynch, do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Taylor, any questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, you call the roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Anything else, John?
No, that's it, Mayor, thank you.
Mayor,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, can I ask the chief, Welsh, can I ask, does this, update change any plans or requirements to the fire department?
No, the deputy chief is handling, this, we do it annually, we do a review annually. The county just came up with a grant to make sure that all the Cook County municipalities have the same uniform agreements, and they're following that, the deputy chief handling that coordination. But additionally, it's our time to look back, and we have to make sure that all of us, including board members, have some requirements to complete some administrating in the 100, I don't know who gets what, but I know the chief and I get my 700 series, and there's some online stuff that the chief's gonna be sending out to you, that you're gonna have to get certified in. And in addition to granting, this is also what we just talked about. If we need that kind of giant assistance, if a tornado comes through or a gigantic flood, we wouldn't qualify for any of that FEMA mitigation money or back time or backfill and overtime and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, it's connected, but it's something we do every 5 years, and he coordinates that. If we don't have the Cook County plan in place, it doesn't get entered to the Illinois plan, which doesn't get entered to the federal plan.
Mayor and Chief, I know that when, and with the insurance issues, you all might remember, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3, I don't know, we had that meeting in the, training room. Maybe it would be nice to revisit that, because I don't think any of the trustees were here then to know
Yeah.
what our roles
And that's the origins of what we're talking about here. You have to have the local town plan, and I remember the debate we had with someone to release it public. You can't. But that local town plan, as part of this plan, is to roll that back out as soon as we get to the bad weather. We have some time to breathe, and then escalate it up to get the train. Yeah.
Okay, village administrator, do you have anything else? No. Okay, village administrator, Brian Mitchell.
Good evening, Mayor, Board, residents, and guests. A couple things. One thing that came up a couple weeks ago was in regards to where Miller and Cooper is in terms of the services they're providing for us in the finance area. Brian and I did have a pretty long, extensive meeting with John Jazz last week. Mostly everything is done. I know they thought it would be done by September, but he anticipates everything will be done by the end of October. He will be before you for the first meeting in November to report back. At which time we can then decide what we want to do going forward, if anything. Of course, as you know, the way the engagement letter is written is that we can provide service, they can provide service to us, or they can provide nothing. It's just based on what we want them to do. A couple things to bring notice to out in the lobby. Hopefully everybody noticed that there are boards out there showing things for Callahan Park, which is right across the street from the police station, as well as options that have been discussed for the Coca-Cola Park once all of the work is done over there in that area. If the board has any questions on anything else, other than that, at the back of the room tonight, I will put some maps to give people a little bit more information as it relates to the road closure on 187th Street. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Is there any questions? You might want to bring up the Halloween contest.
Halloween contest. So we have two contests going for Halloween. One is for you to decorate pumpkins, and the second one is for those that are decorating their homes. We ask that you send the information in to spatterson@villageofglenwood.com. The two contests will be judged by the mayor, the board, and staff. So it is posted on our Facebook, it's on our website, and if anybody needs any flyers or food to eat, please let me know. We'll provide those to you as well.
Little administrative issue, where are we with the audit?
So I can give you an update on the audit. We are looking to have everything completed by December. We are on schedule for that. We have communicated back to Mendoza's office with a plan, which they didn't have any questions in terms of our plan. Adam is here working tonight again on it. As of right now, we're pretty much on task and on schedule.
Any questions? And one other note about Halloween, we are attempting to have the bonfire again this year, but, you know, due to the fact that parks under construction, the roads going to be closed, that type of stuff, might need to change location to reconfigure it, things along those lines. I know people look forward to the annual bonfire, so we're in the process of trying to figure out how we can still have it with, you know, we want to make sure that it's safe, and so we'll see more information coming out. Village Administrator, anything else?
Second one, Mayor.
Engineer, Dave Schill.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in June, the board approved the local agency agreement with the state of Illinois to allow for federal funds to be used to reconstruct 187th from where they're reconstructing the bridge now up to where we're raising the road for the flood wall to the west, and then to the other bridge over Butterfield Creek along Dunwich Chicago Heights Road to the south. So what I'm asking, what is before you today, is a MFT resolution to pay for your local match out of your MFT account. Without this resolution, you would have to use other funds to pay that. It is for $1,100,000, but I did supply in your packet a breakdown of that. Some of that has already been paid, going all the way back to 2012 when this project first started.
Would you like to make a motion for the approval of 187th and Chicago Heights Road MFT resolution?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. Sorry, I'll make a motion to
It's $800,000 to answer your question. If you look at the breakdown, that would be $740,000 for construction and $60,000 for construction engineering. You've already paid for the design engineering and the right of way.
And how much of that is reimbursable by the feds?
None of it. This is your 20% match. So the feds are paying the other 80 direct.
So, Dave, I'm looking at this statement, and our MFT fund as of October 1 has $426,851. And you're saying we owe a balance of $800,000?
You don't owe it. This is upcoming costs when the project is constructed next year.
So,
Brian, how do we fix that shortfall?
So Deanne, there's, 2 spots for MMT funds. You quoted the top one, but there's one also in our Illinois funds that has $1,433,000 in it.
And what fund is that?
It says motor fuel, and then it has numbers 21882 behind it, close to the bottom.
So then, why do we have 2 different motor fuel funds? Is there, are one of those accounts restricted? What's the purpose of having it separated?
They're both combined. What I would say at this point is the one is a checking account, the other one's an interest bearing, well, not interest bearing, but it gains interest for us.
One is working for us, another is sitting there.
So do we have any other obligations from this account?
Not that I'm aware of, but
This is, I know we talked about this earlier this afternoon, this is why I was asking for like real-time understanding of what is obligated to these funds, because it's like we just approve an amount to come, but we don't know what the other obligations are and what that real-time balance looks like in those accounts. So,
You can, Dave, if we postpone this to the first meeting in November, is there a timeline that we are?
This does need to be done as soon as you can, because the state is bidding the project in November.
When in November? Their board meeting is the 4th or something?
I want to say it's not till like the 25th, so it should be okay, but I wouldn't delay it any further than that.
Okay.
But like I said, you already approved the agreement with the state in June to pay for your 20% share.
and that's,
This is just.
yeah, that's fine. I think my own concern is that I just want to understand what the other obligations are as we are expending money. If we have to agree to obligation, we have to agree to that. But it's just, I think it benefits the board just to know how much, exactly, thank you, trustee, how much you mean and what that, Brian, like we talked about earlier this afternoon, just what is already obligated to these funds, but we know, what we're working with in real time, so that's why we don't need to do it, but I just like to know what our obligations are.
Before you table, I would just add that this allows you to pay it out of the MFT account. It does not require you to pay it out of the MFT account.
That's fine, they would even apply if we get it from another fund, I still want to know what those other obligations are before we approve this amount, but.
Please, did you say that we already approved this?
You approved in June what was called the local public agency agreement, which is an agreement between the village and the state, so that the state administers the federal share and you pay your 20% share. I can forward that on to Brian to send you guys if you want to read through that.
So Tracy, you want to table this to the next board meeting?
It won't have any impact on our timeline, Dave?
I don't believe so, as long as we can get it before the letting. You don't want to lose the letting and then you're pushed back time frame.
So trustee Mitchell, you want to?
I'd like to say that, and Brian, only asking that we just see, if we have things on the agenda where we're pulling from certain funds, that we get a illustration of what is already obligated to that, including this request, and what that balance will look like. That's all I'm asking. Yes, in advance.
So we have that for the next board meeting, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, great. We have a motion to table, do we have a second? Second. Trustee Taylor, any questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll. Trustee Taylor. Trustee Williams.
Anything else, Dave?
Nothing else for me, thank you.
Department reports, Chief Petticoat.
Being Mayor, trustees, yes, my earlier report was, on the major incidents, kind of covered a lot of the, information was in my written report. We added a couple of things that were not included, what was the very good purchasing stuff grant for housing campaign, which we focuses on, clicking the ticket, making sure we follow up with the driving. In the month of September, our officers received training in firearms, marksmanship, and use of force. We also, every month, we get legal training. This one's topic of constitutional and proper use of law enforcement authority. One of our officers attended a training course on high-risk traffic stops, which is a mandate by the State and Safety Act. We have so many high-risk traffic stops annually, and so we now have a couple of in-house officers who can train us to help save on setting time on setting officers. But outside courses and things like that, we can do our own in-house continuously. Otherwise, Halloween hours are trick-or-treating before 7. In fall, in September, we have our annual Cops and Drivers event with students from junior high school. It's a favorite community event, the kids love it. It's a great partnership between our officers and the local students, get to know each other, building positive relationships, as well as our participation in the monthly lunch with the law and first responders with the fire department at junior high school. That's our report.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from the Chief? Fire Building, Chief Welch.
Yes, Your Honor, 2 items on the agenda for this evening. The first one is looking for approval of an intergovernmental agreement between ECOM and the Village of Berlin for purchase and authorization for purchase, or you should say use of new radios. You did get the memo included in here. All 9 communities of ECOM are moving to this new technology. And also, we've been working, as everybody knows, with the merger from Southcom and ECOM. ECOM has 9 towns, Southcom has 4. So we'll end up in this new facility, a brand new facility, which they're letting bids on the construction next week. And when we go into that, it'll be 13 communities all working together in one center. What we have found, in addition to that, what we have found with the current radios that the firefighters are carrying, and they're in our apparatus, were purchased on a grant about 11 years ago. And the technology utilized in there, for those who are radio kind of people, are operating on a VHF frequency, which is a mid-range type of a radio frequency. It's become less reliable as buildings get built, as things get in the way of the actual radio signal itself. And the proposal before you tonight is to take us onto a platform that is identical to the platform that the police department uses, which is a high frequency. I think that's what we ultra high, UHF, ultra high frequency. And it'll put us on a repeated system, similar to what the police officer has on the radio. The police officer carries, it only has to, doesn't have to make it from radio to radio, it has to make it from radio to the atmosphere. And we would be operating on the same network style that the police department works, and utilizing the Cook County wide area network. And these new radios would then give us the capability of, a triple backup. The normal frequency would be used in a repeated fashion on a high band during normal operation. In the event that there was a failure of that system, it would revert back onto the radio-to-radio communication. And we experience a lot of times in certain buildings and locations a complete blackout of the system, or if the radio repeater system for the county went down, the backup is that these radios within milliseconds switch over to use a cellular communication port. That's really important for us because these are also the lifeline when you're fighting fires in a building to communicate from inside the building out to the command structure. So the proposal before you tonight is something a little different because over all the years each municipality bought their own stuff, their own equipment, they maintained it, they tuned it up, they put frequencies, they did all this stuff on their own, And what we found is that that's not a real safe way of doing things because different people program in different ways. So with this program, Ecom, Southcom would become the owners of this equipment, would distribute it out, and maintain the ownership for the 7 years, and all the maintenance costs and all the repairs and the service that we need to provide for those radios over that time period. You'll see that it's a contractual obligation for a 7-year program of payment. And on the charts that I supplied to you with the intergovernmental agreement, you'll see that we didn't go overboard with the number of units we're getting. We just are buying enough of the on-duty personnel and vehicles that we use. Currently, all members of the departments and all of our departments have radios assigned to them, but because of the cost of these radios, we all banded together and said we would only have enough radios for those what you call seated positions. So if we have a crew of 5 people on or 6 people maximum on any given day, we'll have that many radios plus a couple of spares. Your 2 chiefs would have radios assigned to them, and we can function within the system. As you were talking about earlier, we always want to know where our funding source is. In this particular case, this radio agreement would be signed off. Ecom would be the purchaser. They would hold title to them until the end. We would not have a payment due until November of 2025, and that would be that $26,157.19 would be programmed into the next budget, not the current one we're finishing up now, but it would be programmed as an operational expense or a capital expense, depending on where the finance man puts it, moving into the 2025 budget time. I think that explains my memo and all the attachments I had pretty well.
Would somebody make, then we have a discussion, would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of intergovernmental agreement between Ecom and Golden Funds for the purchase and authorization for purchase of radios for a lease payment of $26,157.19 for 7 years, with the first payment being November of 2025. Trustee Carey.
Second.
Trustee Brown. Any questions?
I have a question. Chief,
Yes.
in your communication, it was stated that there's an insurance cost for these radios, and that's not included in this $26,000, so how is it insured?
The individual municipalities are charged with insuring the equipment over the life of the agreement. And in our case, it would be added, it would automatically, once we took the arrival or took over these radios, similar to what the police have, is covered with our travelers insurance, liability insurance we have here in the village, and it's covered under the, is it called the outward marine portion of our policy? I believe that's the name of the coverage. So we have to maintain insurance coverage, but there's no separate policy. It's included in our normal travelers insurance program. And that would be in the case we got destroyed somehow. The rest of the maintenance is all on the program.
Any other questions? Clerk, please.
So Chief, with the insurance, that's already, you're saying that it's already covered, you haven't gotten it yet, but it will be covered under travelers?
Yeah, it's similar to like on your homeowner's insurance with our travelers. When you receive something, take possession of it, it becomes covered, and then we do our annual updates for all of our fleet and all of our small, what they call upward marine, small equipment. Police do it, we do it, public works. It's all covered under our normal liability insurance program.
So wouldn't that mean that if we get to use that, the insurance would increase, the premium?
No.
It would not?
No, it's based on loss histories on our liability insurance.
Okay, so after 7 years, it's all paid for?
That's correct, and then we would have to assume maintenance costs, but anybody who's involved in technology, I'm gonna guess in 7 years, these things are gonna be boat anchors. We got pretty lucky. The current radios we have will be maintained as backup, for transfer some of those to ESDA, so they could use them out on the street. We could use them at events, but that technology isn't enough to suffice any longer. And the radios we currently have, it was similar to, originally when the police went up on the high band, they received all the radios under the Cook County program with a grant. We actually received all the radios we're carrying now, and I should have brought one in here, off of a grant that we applied through for Mavis Vision 24, and each department was given a radio, I think it was about 11 years ago, and they've all reached, Motorola in their infinite wisdom decided years ago that they were making radios too good, so they started to make them so that they could phase them out. And what we're experiencing now is Motorola has determined a life expectancy on our current radios, and what they do is they discontinue making parts. And the parts you normally need are the ones they quit making first. So these radios become obsolete, and of our 31 radios total, we currently have 9 of them that are totally out of service and can't repair them.
I have one more question. Thank you. I have one more question. So if we have, and just, I'm a layman with this, if we have limited firefighters, but you're asking for 17 radios, and you're saying we have 31 now, did you just say that we have 31? What are we doing with our, like, who gets the radios? You got 9 portable, you got 8 mobile.
The mobile radios would go in the 2 command cars, the inspector car, the 2 ambulances, the 2 engines, and a ladder truck. Is that right? I don't know what I just said.
Say it again.
It would be the 2 chief's cars, the inspector car, the 2 ambulances, the 2 engines, and a ladder truck. I believe that's 8.
That's 8, okay.
And does it say 9 or 8?
That was 8 mobile.
That's 8 mobiles, so that's where they would go. And then the 9 portable radios, on any given day, we have an on-duty staffing of maximum 5. The 2 chiefs are already there, they have theirs, the inspector has his. So we have 5, but you have to remember that at shift change, if the ambulance is still at the hospital, the next shift comes in, I can't simply rotate them right away. I have to have some kind of cover so the next shift can take the next call. Plus, we're going to have one that has to go for repair, so we've got to have a little bit of a buffer there. So currently, like I say, with this older technology, we have mobile radios in all of our apparatus. And we have the 9 or 10 mobile radios currently, but we had 31 portable radios, and every member at one time had their own radio. We're not going to do that anymore. We changed protocol.
Okay,
To
Brian.
keep the cost down.
Thank you. Is this in the budget?
Well, this would be for the,
It's in the next year budget.
Okay.
I have to account for it in the next year. There's no expenditure for 12 months.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Do we get any type of credit for the radios that are in our?
No, the current radios we have, like I said, they were purchased on a FEMA grant under the Assistance Firefighters Grant, I believe about 11 years ago, as a multi-unit grant. So those radios actually were purchased with federal money. We lived through the federal timeline, which I think at that time was 5 years. And then it became our property, and there's really little to no resale value. Unfortunately, a couple of them look good, but nobody wants them because they're not supported with any kind of repair parts anymore, so the values, we're just gonna keep them and use them until they completely fall apart, and we're not gonna repair them anymore, but we'll transfer them into ESDA and use them in events and things like that. And in years past, we've passed radios on to Phil at the Glen Woody, for him to use for his rangers and things, so that might be another option, because we do have gang chargers, battery chargers, things like that, we could move on.
Chief, can I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
And then Brian, you can help me too, or whoever had the answer. But after this particular question, but my second. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. I remember maybe 3 years ago, if that, when we purchased those sub books, didn't the board approve for radios for the fire department at that time?
No.
There was this same concern with the frequency and not getting signals in the buildings. We approved.
It was part of the Tough Books purchase, which had a software program in it that communicated with their radio, but it's the old technology. And that technology that's in Tough Books will be able to work with the new technology in the high band. But we haven't bought any radios for the fire department in probably 11 years.
Yeah, I guess, so we made the purchase to update for the Tough Books, and that wasn't even 4 years ago, so now we're having to buy radios.
Right. It's apples and oranges. The radios are what's worn by the firefighters as they enter the burning buildings and go on these calls. I mean, you see them, they're all wearing.
Yeah.
It's two separate issues.
Well, I get that, but I'm just saying, we're here for communications updates because we improve with the Tough Books. And so these new radios will work with those.
What they call that tracking software, yes, it will work.
So, how are we gonna, what's your recommendation to pay for this?
In the 2025 budget, it will be part of my presentation for an operating budget. I'm gonna have to cut back or whatever they do within the budgets to make it work in the next budget. So not the one that's being considered now, there's no change.
So should we wait for that budget?
You can't wait, these radios are failing on a daily basis. The system radios are failing as well. You gotta remember that we're part of a unified system, and the lead time to get these things is anywhere from 3 to 5 months. So we're kind of between the rock and a hard place. And the pricing is increasing. We've, through the joint purchasing and the efforts of the two dispatch center directors, they've already beat the snot out of Motorola to reduce these prices.
So, this is, I guess, where Brian, even Chief, you can answer here. I didn't see in this year's budget a line item for the foreign insurance account. Was that not factored into this budget?
It's factored into every budget. It's an ongoing account.
It's not listed.
But this body doesn't administer the expenditure of the foreign fire insurance tax receipts. That goes to a whole separate board.
But that money can be used for this?
It could, but right now they've just designated a whole boatload of that for purposes to offset this, but not the radios.
So what board decides where that fund?
There's a statute that's established that determines who's on the board. It's full-time firefighters, it's firefighters with years of experience that are members of your fire department.
So could you
Dion, the legislature, in their wisdom, decided that that had to be allocated. Right now, from what's in here, it says you have $121,998 in there. Yeah. Foreign fire insurance.
That's correct.
Okay, I didn't see it.
The legislature kind of knew that they created a separate board to make sure that fire insurance money is used for fire-related purposes, and they seem to enact that statute under the assumption that if you left it up to the village, they would use it for other purposes rather than fire. So to make sure it was only used for fire insurance purposes, they created a foreign fire insurance board, which I think the chief, you're probably on it.
Yeah.
They call it full-time officers.
I don't remember the exact makeup of the statute, but it is very, very.
You can't get this board to steer the money this way?
Well, they've got a couple of the things they're gonna be bringing to you that they wanna purchase for operations.
Add this to it.
They don't have enough of this one, and the other part of this isn't just this purchase, it's the agreement that we're gonna conform to the rules and regulations of the dispatch center when it comes to these, so the programming is the same throughout the whole region, and we're all operating on the same platform.
Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown?
Before I vote, I just want to be clear that this is for the next budget.
26, yes. Right, just for.
But you need them now.
Yes. That's why in all the municipalities that worked on this project determined that they'd come up with a scheduled purchase, a payment plan purchase, so nobody was hurt. Because you can see some of those towns are buying a whole bunch of them. And that's what everybody, all the towns agreed to.
I mean, what's the timeline on this again,
Or,
that you need?
I need them yesterday.
And how long does it take for you to get them?
I think it's 4 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months. And it depends on when all the municipalities finish the approval. I think there's one other out there holding on the 13th, and it's just our meeting schedule didn't get it till now. So that they can go ahead and place the order. The time has not begun ticking yet so much on the order, but unfortunately, it's the way Motorola handles its business.
When were you all made aware of this? Like, when?
It was probably about 6 weeks ago, when the directors got together to try and come up with a solution to the failures we've been having, because there's been, I think, 5 failures of the radio system now that really brought it to the forefront. And in looking at solutions as how we move forward, going to the UHF frequency, the repeated band, that's the solution. It's a little more costly, but it's the solution that'll take us years ahead, not days ahead.
Any other questions?
I have a question. And make no mistake about it, I want the firefighters to be safe, but we get this, it's kind of like a lot of agenda items are just, it has to be done now. And we're forced to make these decisions and these critical needs of departments, and that combated with us still being in the budget process, us still nowhere near done with our audit apparently. I think it does the board a disservice to have to be in a position to make these decisions.
I concur, I understand that. I understand that, but I wouldn't bring this to you if it wasn't at a critical point.
But that's what it seems like, and not just with this, it's like everything is a critical point when it comes. Like, we've known about, we could have planned for this beginning of the year. I know the radios just didn't.
So it really didn't come up. This is somewhat real time. I understand your dilemma, but this is real time. These failures didn't start with the system. We were ghosted. We thought we were good until we got to the new center. And I could provide the documentation from our directors that show the amount of failures and the amount of background work that went into this. So it's not ill thought or quickly put together. There's been a ton of thought, ton of solutions put forward to try and get us there, maybe put a Band-Aid on. There's no Band-Aid solution because Motorola is not supporting what we have, and that's when we started to realize that we've got a crisis because Motorola has chosen to not support the technology any longer.
And so when they were building the building, they didn't have that conversation if the old system would work with the new system once they moved there?
Again, it's apples and oranges. Regardless of what system we move into the new center, it'll work. But the old system is failing before we get to the new center. Otherwise, the plan was to wait until we got joined, but we couldn't wait because the failures are happening so rapidly. We're running sometimes 12, 15 hours where we're using cell phones to communicate because our system is gone down. And this is the solution. We know what we're doing is we're getting out of maintaining a system and we're going on to the county, I guess it's called wide area network WAN, so we don't have those maintenance costs. We're getting out of it, we're saving money.
And so in another 70 years, the board will have to be back here again for...
Unless Motorola continues to support that technology and we have alternate solutions. Who knows what's going to happen in 7 years with technology, but you're right, it could happen.
I have 2 more questions. Since you keep mentioning Motorola, are they the only technical company that makes these radios?
I share your Byrne, absolutely. I wish there was better competition. The unfortunate part, answer to that question is, there's so much complex equipment in Chief Pennycourt. It starts right from the machine that answers the 911 call, to the machine that processes it, to the machine that puts it into the computer. If they don't all work together and speak the same language, nothing works. So they got to catch it by the cojones there.
I know, I understand.
Unfortunately.
I understand how technology goes, and another 7 years, and the parts and like cell phones, same thing. It's hard to convince somebody that their phone is going to go out because they want to keep their old phone. I get that, but I'm just wondering, it's just one company that does this, that you use. I was just asking. And the last question is, it says here the expiration date for this proposal that you have in front of us is October 9th. So today is the 15th. So that means that this proposal, are you saying that this proposal, since it's already expired, has it gone up?
They did call and extend that. I didn't get a fresh copy to put in there. It's November 4, I believe, or whatever that Friday is. November 2, maybe? 1, 2. They extended for the one community that doesn't have a meeting scheduled until the last week in October.
Okay, so
Florida has extended that.
All right, I don't know if this is the right order or not, but what I'd like to do is I would like to just table this decision until we get a new copy that says that the date has not expired yet, because I believe that you need the radios. I just trust what you say as far as the technology is concerned, but I have a problem saying yes to something that's already expired.
How about as a alternative to approve it contingent on the mayor receiving the contract with the date, because it is very time sensitive. So it would be approved contingent on the mayor receiving the updated expiration contract. As opposed to a complete date.
I'm going to change the motion. Approval of an intergovernment agreement between Econ and the Village of Glenwood for the purchase and authorization for the purchase of radios. The first payment being due November 2025, the next fiscal year, for 7 years in the amount of $26,157.19, contingent on documentation stating that we divide them by the 6th, did you say? The 5th, by 11/5. We'll send that out, we can send that out to trustees, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to have more.
So, Chief, you said that you don't know how we're gonna fund this, what fund this will come from?
It'll come out of the operating fund of the fire department for 2026. I'll have to include it in my operational. We have line items in there for communications equipment, computers. I'll have to adjust those line items to make sure I accommodate for that for 7 years.
So this, in addition to the fire pumper, that if we have to finance, which will also come out of the fire department's fund, correct? If that, if we still haven't gotten which way we're going with
Yeah,
that.
that payment would be programmed in for that year too, I believe, about 150.
Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Can you come back to me?
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
No.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
I don't like abstaining on votes. I like to say yes or no. But at the same time, I like to have a better understanding about how this is going to be placed in the new budget. I like a better understanding. You know, I'm just a little confused. Although I know for sure that I support the fire department, I know for sure that I support the radios. What I don't know for sure is the future about putting this in a budget for next year, and we're having budget issues now. And I just don't like to be put in that position. It's just uncomfortable for me because I'm torn, to be honest with you. I'm just gonna have to abstain. I'm sorry.
Okay, two.
Item number,
Item number 2. I don't even know if I want to do this, but here we go. Sirens, weather sirens. We maintain 8 weather sirens in the community, covering each and every one of the neighborhoods. The one at Fire Station 1 has been inoperable for, it was caught on the last annual maintenance or semi-annual maintenance, and we didn't have any option for funding it at that time. And then the siren at Fire Station 2 that's behind the plaza, just off of the alleyway, which I show in here was purchased in 1971, and the siren at the Fire Station 1 on this side of town was from 1962, after it was moved from the old Village Hall site, which sat just to the north of where we're sitting now. So that one's been around a while. It completely froze up and it won't move. It's just totally shot. So when I got this proposal to do a siren for Fire Station 2 replacement, it came in at $25,717 for the single siren. And then I asked them if they would go look at the other one to see if there was a value of replacing 2 at a time as opposed to just one. And it turns out there was only about a $300 savings based on the locations of where these have to be put. So, as you see in the memo, these are about $25,717. What we've included in this current budget that you're working on towards approval under the ESDA was one replacement siren, and we budgeted it in, Brian and I worked on it, we budgeted that in at $29,000 for that siren replacement, and that was going to be for the one at Fire Station number 1, which covers the front half of the Forest subdivision. You have another siren at the field house, the Center Street field house. So that section of town is uncovered, as well as the old Brookwood Point and the section near Hickory Bend School. That area right now isn't covered by a tornado siren, a weather siren. And then the one at Fire Station 2 is the condo complexes, the estates, and a little portion of the manor before they get covered by the siren that's at the Aquila Park garage on 187. So as you say, we're always trying to figure out where we get the funding from. The siren for the area at 183 and also the Robertson and Aquila would be funded out of TIF. It's a TIF eligible expense. And then the budgeted amount at not to exceed $29,000 would be for the siren at Fire Station 1. I don't have any other funding source for that one at Fire Station 1. I think that the world has come a long ways in creating cell phone communication and alerts and warnings on all of our mobile data terminals, our TVs, our smartphones, and everything else. But what we found when we've talked to this at community meetings, it's not helping the people who are out in the park playing with their kids. It's not helping people that are out in the yard doing yard work or cutting grass, and they depend on these sirens for notice during tough times. And when you see that sky clouding up, what does everybody do? They go outside to see what's going on, and they wait for the siren to blow. So we do have a pretty robust system here. There's a couple holes in the system. It is recommended that we move forward. But again, this is one of those cases where this is not life or death. As in the last case, I'm not going to plead for this, but it's something we have to do to get our footprint covered 100%.
Okay, I make the motion, we get a first and a second, we have further discussion. For a motion for the approval of purchase of 2 weather alert sirens from, what was that, 2 federal sirens?
Federal signal.
Federal signal, to not to exceed, $52,000 with, a portion coming out of the, TIF, the Classic London Plaza TIF, that would be south, and, the remaining balance coming out of ESDA. Motion. Trustee Taylor.
Second.
Trustee Rowe. Okay, any questions?
I have a question. Okay, Chief, I understand that you said there are 2 of them, and one of them is already in the budget. Did I understand that correctly?
The current budget is under review, that you've had before you have made it through a couple of revisions. You did place, as staff, you placed $29,000 under the ELSA portion of the budget. It's been in all the budget documents from the start, so it is in there, not fully approved.
Okay, this is under, I'm sorry, this is my health insurance. I see this under communications.
Under
ESDA, it's ESDA has a separate amount. ESDA is 50,000, and communications has just 29,000. So is communications rolled into ESDA?
I'm missing, I don't.
Are you saying that this is
Under the 700 series in the budget, which is the
Yes.
ESDA piece, that $29,000 is what I referred to. I believe it says communication.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, that's the account name is communications, but it's in the ESDA section.
Okay.
So we would be using $2
For one,
for one.
and the budgeted money for the other.
Okay, so, we're trying to get both at the same time. Is it necessary to get both at the same time?
And that's a $1 million question for you guys. I mean, there's a slight savings, there's a minimal savings of about $400 by doing them together, which I don't think that's a motivating factor. You know, we could do 0, or we could do the one with the TIF dollars, which that's okay, and we could hold off until you complete the budget, and adopt the budget to do the one for the fire station. Again, there's a lead time on these things, and we all know that springtime is our heavier storm season, so I did kind of want to get ready for that, but that's completely up to you guys.
So did you say that one is failing, the one in station 1
Is who?
is failing, it's not.
Oh, no, it's failed. They were back out. I tried to resurrect it one more time. There's a couple different motors in these things. One is the one that makes the noise, the other one is the one that rotates. And we've replaced the rotating motor a couple times, that's a few $100. But now the big main motor went out on it, and that's several $1,000s. And it's just not worth doing it because it's a gigantic, I don't know, I suppose somebody would like to put it in their living room or something, but it's just a boat anchor.
So what would it cost just to repair?
About $17,000.
And how long would that last?
The rest of the bearings and everything, I don't know. I couldn't recommend that in good faith. That would really be, I think that would be pouring bad money, or good money on bad, as they say.
I don't know, I'm sorry. You were talking. I apologize. I just, my only concern with this is, here again, we are allocating something to TIF. We don't know what that fund will look like. Granted, 27,000 doesn't sound like a lot compared to what is in that account currently, but we also don't know what the other obligations. And then we're approving yet another item in the budget that we have not approved yet, which means that we are fixing numbers that essentially are gonna have to be stabilized as we try to work through finishing this budget. It just seems like we are doing business backwards. And that just really bothers me.
Because you plan the budget and you act from that budget. You don't act then plan the budget. It just, I don't know how we do business like that, but.
I think though that, your concerns are certainly all of our concerns. But I think that you, from a department head standpoint, and trying to bring the best service to the residents, I can't not bring these things to you so that there's inputs and decisions. And if your chosen professionals have decided these things need to come forward, I don't run the budget. And I have to bring these things to you to make decisions. So they're not being fraught like, oh, we don't have a budget, let's go out and do this. You know, these things have been vetted pretty carefully through emergency services. And we're at that point, so I know we don't have the budget, and I get it, and I'm not falling on the sword for this one. I'm just saying to you that these are issues of public safety which have to be brought to the forefront, and shame on whatever for not having the budget, but we can't continue to put everything off to a later date, because eventually it's gonna all fall.
No, I agree. Continue. You're absolutely right. You're doing what you're supposed to do as a department, and I applaud you for that. I tell anybody, if you want something done, you got to get Chief Welsh to do it, because he advocates for this department, and I appreciate you for that. But I think that the board also has the responsibility to be financially responsible with taxpayers' money. And as these things come to the board, they sometimes come at the last minute, and they don't come with a full plan. And for us to make uninformed decisions, I just don't think is very responsible of us. And yes, absolutely, anything from public works, fire department, police department is absolutely necessary. But I think the problem comes into play is how that's presented to us. We get things at the last minute. There's no plan for, there's no preparation. It's just like, it has to happen now. Everything is now. Every meeting when there's action to be taken, we rarely hear or we will get time, no, it has to be done now. And the problem comes into play where these things should have been mapped out and put into a capital expense account or fund, planned out properly, so that we can properly plan and pay for these things and not pay for them without a budget or without understanding what resources are going to fund them. Believe you, Chief, it has nothing to do with not thinking that because it's a first responder that it's not important. I think it's just our responsibility to look at all angles. And that's it.
Can we ask a question here?
Hey, Chief, I have a question. I just want to be clear. So, one of the sirens you say is from 1971?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. And then the other one is from 1962?
Yes. It's almost as old as me.
And, okay, and the 29,000 for one of them is in this budget, correct?
The one, it is in the budget that you're considering.
Right, that we're considering, so that's already built in. And then the next one, the 25,717, that would be?
TIF eligible expense out of the Halsted North.
Okay, that's a TIF eligible one. The 29,000 is what?
Well, it's, in the budget number was 21, but they're both gonna be 25.
Okay.
Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch? Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have. Thank you.
Is there any new business?
Excuse me. Before we move on to new business, we have a report from Bill, kind of, sort of, that was in here, but it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and go over your report. This is from May 1st through September 30th.
Yes, that was the revenue expense report from May 1 through the end of September. It should have been in your packet there. It shows the revenues, and it also showed, I think, that it was a net Net surplus of 239,236,000. I don't have it in front of me. Wait, hold up. But I'm open for questions if anybody has them.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe regarding the numbers?
I don't really have any questions so much about the numbers. I think the detail a little bit, because I've asked for a report for months, and this is from May to September, and you put it together fairly quickly, I think. But for instance, like the hall rental, and what else, one more thing I was looking at. The types of venues, I'm just curious, like the types of venues that we have. Like, do you find that the weddings are more successful than just parties? Do you find that more alcohol is served in one particular month than the other? Like, if you had a breakdown from May through September, like on a spreadsheet to see what the increase or decrease was?
This is the first step. I'll get you these updates monthly, moving forward. But obviously the warmer months, wedding season, May through September is generally going to be much higher than your winter months.
Is there any other questions for Phil? Okay, any other new business? Old business, we have a motion to table the FY 2025 budget. So, Trustee Lynch, Trustee Clark, and the clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Is there any other old business?
Mayor, were you tabling the executive session and appointments? No.
Could we make a motion to go into closed session before your approval for request of executive closed section under 2C1 personnel with action to be taken by reason to reconvene at the end of the meeting.
So,
Trustee Roll and Trustee Williams, Deputy Clerk Williams, and call roll.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Brown?
Yes.